Thank you. I'm Henrik Clausen from Denmark. And I think first I want to thank you for a very interesting set of presentations you have conducted here for the panel that has been very informative. And I have a simple question. Now we heard a lot about Islamophobia, and at the basis for this discussion about Islamophobia, I suppose that you will be referring to a definition of Islamophobia, so you can distinguish between relevant political debate and unfounded debate. Could you refer to this definition you're using?
I think it's a very valid question, and the most qualified person to answer that will be Professor Chennai, and when he will summarize, then I will ask him to give you an answer. But thank you very much for asking. And yes, Monsieur.
My name is Steve Cognut. My question is maybe a follow-up. I know in the early 1990s it was the Organization of Islamic Cooperation that came up with the term new form of racism that is not based on race, it's based on ideology. Could you define Islamophobia in a way that you don't use the new definition of racism? And could you define the new definition of racism and why that redefinition of a legal term should be effective?
Okay. And who do you direct this question to?
To anybody on the panel who feels...
Anybody in the panel. So I would give microphone to our friend from France, because he has been working with this issue.
Thank you very much. And I hope the Hanan breakfast was good for everyone. The definition of Islamophobia, this is a debate that has been, I think, that went old-fashioned for the past 15 years, but it's always useful to say it again. Islamophobia is not about the criticism or free speech or debating. It's about the attacks against people and or institutions because of their real or assumed adherence to the Muslim faith. That's why when people made their presentations here about Islamophobia, they spoke about discrimination, they spoke about the attacking of mosques, they spoke about the physical assault against women, they spoke about the systematic exclusion of Muslims. And that's why the definition is about the protection of people and the protection of institutions, and more broadly, the protection of national cohesion. I hope that answers your question.
I'm not going to provide a definition for Islamophobia, but it's just important to know that it's not actually factually true that it was in the late 90s. It was actually a term that was coined in colonial countries in Africa.
What? Okay. Thank you. If there is no other question, I just want to say from our partners at AMISCO that we are not against criticism. I think criticizing an individual or a group or even criticizing a religion is fine, but there's a big difference between demonization of people and criticizing, and that is where we draw the line. And you come from Denmark, I come from Denmark, and you know that in Danish law there is a clause 266b which is against incitement to hatred. It is used against homophobia, it is used against anti-Semitism, but in Denmark's history, I've lived there 46 years, never that law has been used against Islamophobic statement. So it says a lot about what the situation is in Europe, but thank you very much for coming and asking. Professor Chennai, I'm going to give you the floor, and you have to answer that question, our friend from Denmark, even if I have explained, but please.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all the analysts and the speakers and then the participants for being here. And I mean, the very presence of you here shows that Islamophobia is a problem and it exists. Whether you are critical of the word, term, or you are in favor of a particular definition or not. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind when you asked this question about the definition of Islamophobia, I said to myself, Houston, we have a problem. Because, this again reminded me of what Yasser Loti said. This question, I'm sorry to say, this is my personal opinion, it's an Islamodiversion. I mean, everything, after all we heard from all the speakers, all the examples, and all the European union reports, the OSCE reports, and relevant reports in the last so many years, that there is an increase in the Islamophobia, that we still go back to step one, defining Islamophobia. You're still asking a definition of Islamophobia. With all due respect, you have to write that. It's a legitimate question. But I think there are many definitions of Islamophobia, and I will not give you a definition here. It's not that there isn't a definition, and I'm kind of a little irritated with this discussion about definition of Islamophobia. Last year in HDIM, again, another panel I've taken part, another friend from the platform, from the floor, asked the same question, nothing else. What is the definition of Islamophobia? We all know what Islamophobia is. You can use a different term, but the reality is that it's a mistrust, it's intolerance, it's discrimination, it's a combination of so many things. It's a contemporary form of racism and xenophobia.
The questions are over.
What can be said? I mean, what more one can say after all these detailed articulations by the panelists? Everything is mixed with or intertwined with the migration issue. Keywords. I can only go through the keywords and then give my opinion as personal representative of the chairing person, the OSCE chairing person on combating intolerance and discrimination against Muslims. I can just say a few recommendations, you know, and agree with certain points raised by the panelists. At the end of the day, we're talking about hate speech, rhetoric, and hate crimes. Hate crimes are based on prejudice, bias motivated, etc. There are technical definitions of that for the police, for the prosecutors, you know, for the justice system, everything. And I've been to UK in July and to Sweden last month, and had wonderful meetings with the government people, the Home Office in UK, and the relevant ministers in Sweden, and the NGOs in both countries. And I've been traveling in Europe and meeting with various NGOs and government officials as well. So what strikes me is that during my visits to European countries, I'm totally out of my text. What I prepare is not what I'm talking about, but they are part of that. But in no country, no government official refused or denied or disagreed with all these issues raised by the panelists. Everyone, every single person, from the prosecution level to the ministerial level, they said that yes, Islamophobia is a problem, we're trying our best. This is, I'd like to share this with you. Everyone agrees that there is a problem, and it's more and more, it's on the increase. We discuss about the legal dimension, we discuss about the financial aspect, we discuss about the media dimension and the policy dimension, etc. So it's something that everyone agrees on it. So what happens, what we disagree on is what to do about it, or how far we go on it. Well, first of all, let me go back to hate crimes issue. Hate crimes consist of two elements. The act must be a crime under the criminal code. It should be defined, and Islamophobia is not defined as a hate crime in most countries. This is a problem. I see that in many platforms, people are happy with this, that Islamophobia is not described as a hate crime. It is, I think, unfair. It's more than just a Norwegian hairdressers refusing a Muslim woman for hair makeup. It has a subtle, deep element of racism that people are happy that Islamophobia is not defined. The second element of the hate crime is that the crime must have been committed with a bias motivation. This is the ODIHR and the OSCE definition, these are. And the bias motivation is, of course, hugely debated the scope of the bias moderation. And there are also the mixed motives. You know, it's of course difficult for the police forces. Now, this is one thing that should be sorted out. The police forces should record Islamophobic hate crimes as Islamophobic hate crimes, surely based on evidence. This is the point one. There are ways of it. Most of the complaints about Islamophobic hate crimes evaporate in the process of prosecution, purposefully or unpurposefully. And many OSCE participating states report about hate crimes, very good cooperation with the ordeal, but then we don't see any convictions about the crimes. They kind of disappear on the way. The other issue is the radicalization issue. This famous radicalization and counterterrorism policies. When I speak to the British government officials about this, some of them agreed that this law may have gone out of way a little bit in practice, but they are doing their best, to balance it. But when you speak to Muslim communities in Britain, their children are taken away from the families, not just like in Sweden. It's called referred children, just because of their Google search. It is true, in schools, there are some softwares used, and when a Muslim kid types Ramadan, Salat, even ordinary words, these words are in the software, that indicates that this kid is potentially an extremist, and he's called or she's called referred child. I can't give you more details about this. I sometimes wonder if we are dealing with a Don Quixote syndrome. Are we still, dealing with this windmills and Don Quixote, Dulcinea, multiculturalism, all these things. All the panelists here underlined from different contexts that Islamophobia, Muslim hatred or anti-Muslim hatred has moved from the margins to the mainstream. All the examples indicate this. From the margins to the mainstream. This is something I want to underline as well. The media representation. And another thing that, I have so many notes, but we don't have time from each speaker, but in this very context, I remember what this colleague from, I think Yasser said, is Islamophobia a state-sponsored issue? And our colleague from UK also said something like, is this relationship between governments and the media, something so innocent, that, every time when you speak to government officials, they say, the media is independent. Is that really so? Is that really so? Let's take this seriously. And it seems that from Belgium, France to Sweden, and all this range, it seems that Islamophobia is becoming very structured and very well orchestrated by politicians, unfortunately. It is really, really worrying. And the silence of friends, I like that phrase, silence of friends is hurting. And friends here mean organizations, NGOs in different parts of the NGO world, NGOs which deal with racism, intolerance, that they keep silent when it comes to Islamophobia. This is also a concern in terms of multiculturalism debate in Europe. So in a way, resonating what Yasser said, in the context of France, he said that France as a laboratory of Islamophobia, or Muslims as, what did he say, a barometer of democracy. I think Islamophobia is a test case for the future of multiculturalism in Europe now. It is serious. So do we really have to continue entertaining that Islamophobia is just something that is defended by or followed by few marginals in Europe, or it is mainstream? This is important. The migrant and Muslim is overlapping now. We have to get out of this trap. Another issue, we have to really evaluate everyone with some education about the cultural history of Europe and Enlightenment tradition and everything. We have to get out of this laicism, the obsession with the laicism issue. Now things have changed. We are not